All right. So it's currently the next day, the third of June, and today we are gonna start with modern robotics. Previously, we basically covered the history and some ideology of how robots were made. What was the difference between automation and robotics? We also saw that uh, defining robotics is a very complex thing because it includes a lot of things like a lot of things. Okay, so let's just move to our PDF. I think we were on page 42. Yeah, so we had to start with modern robotics. I think I did this part. You have to start with topic 1.6.1, coping with the unknown. Okay, so let's just read what it says. Before that, let me just open my clock. I just have to make sure that I'm not going over an hour. So, managing complex tasks or missions autonomously is unknown. Challenging context requires high level of performance and precision, decision making, and agile motion control. Okay, all elements that can be observed in a wide variety of configurations and biological strategies in nature is one of the main reasons why living systems quickly became a source of inspiration for robotics. Okay. Among the first fully autonomous robots are a handful of prototypes realized in 1948 by William Gray Walter, a neurophysicist, neuropsychologist fascinated by the complexity of the emerging behaviors manifested by simple biological systems. He was convinced of the possibility to transpose such strategies in the field of robotics. Okay, by using elementary devices in order to prove his hypotheses, he designed a wheeled robot of steering tricycle, which was able to detect light directly through a frontal photodiode sensor without any programming. It was instructed by simple electronic logics to actuate the wheels in order to head towards the strongest light source in its environment. This is very simple instruction led by emerging behavior, a behavior that was not planned nor programmed, by which it could autonomously avoid obstacles. Emerging behaviors represent one of the essential characteristics of the. So, here, what they're talking about is basically adaptation. So in real world, like if I take example of human beings, we adapt to our surrounding. If it's too cold, then there is a possibility that we humans might need fur. And usually we don't have fur, but like we can grow thick body hair body on us. So that's basically an adaptation to the environment. There's another thing that is coming to my mind. Oh, when we go into the sun rays, uh, there's actually a a chemical called myelin. No, not myelin. I don't exactly know that's something different. That's something different. Myelin is basically a compound in our brain. My bad. Uh, let me just think of it. Okay, let me just give you the example of myelin itself. So myelin is basically a fatty tissue which surrounds neurons. So here's the thing: when you try to do deep work, what happens is that your brain surrounds your neurons around surrounds no, not neurons, but your brain surrounds myelin around the neurons so that your neurons could fire very efficiently. Just like how you start doing something, what happens is that you become very efficient and very good at it. This is basically because of something called myelination. So, where was I? I was basically saying that uh, the robotists who were basically making robots, uh, had to deal with something called adaptation. The robot should be able to adapt according to its environment. There is one another example in uh, there's actually a movie called X-Men, and there was a mutant in that movie which basically adapted to its environment. I don't exactly remember the name of that mutant, but like if you just gave him, heat, his skin would adapt to it. If you just gave him cold, his skin would adapt to cold, in order to prevent from dying. So that's what they're trying to say. Like, the robot should basically be adaptable to its environment. Oh wait, let me just adjust my camera a little bit. Yeah, that looks perfect. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Okay, where was I? So, uh, This is a, this very simple instruction led to emerging behavior, a behavior that was not planned nor programmed, by which it could autonomously avoid obstacles. Emerging behavior represents one of the essential characteristics of the living beings. When the battery level was getting low, the robot behavior switched in order for it to seek the darkest spot around, as it was trying to burrow in its lair. The protective shell over Walter's robots, as well as the slow velocity, led people to christen them turtles or tortoise. The latter name was kept by their creator, most likely because, as mentioned in the Alice in the Wonderlands, tortoises are wise teachers. Okay, I can really relate to this. I have heard of this Alice in the Wonderland, but I don't exactly remember what that was. Interestingly enough, the relations of the robotists with Turtle extended far beyond Walter's prototype. In the 60s, a new teaching approach called Logo was developed. It was based on recent cognition and learning researches and implemented into programming languages. One implementation made Logo history. It consisted in a method to teach the basis of procedural thinking and programming to children. Kids would learn either by instructing a turtle coin to move on the screen of a computer monitor, or like a turtle like robot to move on the floor. Logo remained one of So that's the water tortoise that they were talking about. I mean, that's crazy. The only two sets for the teaching for procedural programming and thinking until late 90s in the primary school, as well as in high schools. Walter's Totos inspired a great deal of other robotic works. 20 years later, in 2010, two employees from the Willow Garage, Foley Foot and Melanie Weiss, started working on newly released Microsoft Kinect camera to integrate it with the iRobot Crate platform. The result was an affordable, easy-to-use robot perfectly fit for teaching and training, to which they give the name Turtlebot. Turtlebot. Its popularity is closely intertwined with one of the robotic operating system, or ROS, discussed in the chapter 5. One of the most important conclusions of these experiments, wait, its popularity closely intertwined with one of the ROS. Okay, one of the most important conclusions of these experiments is that platforms with heavy limitations on sensing abilities and processing power can develop complex behaviors that mimic those of insects, birds, fishes, and in particular those of animal societies in which a group of individuals can implement complex tasks that are out of reach of a single element. This paved the way for the field of the swarm robotics discussed in the chapter 5, chapter 11. What are swarm robotics? Uh, Artificial intelligence approach that coordinates a large number of simple autonomous robots. Oh, okay. Oh, I have heard of this. They're making, the people in MIT are basically making this from robotics in MIT. I've heard of it. This basically small uh, fly type creature, this hopping bug. I remember. There was a video of, uh, there's this YouTube channel called Potassium. That guy posted the video regarding why MIT is making robots. Okay, why? Let me just search for it. Making robots. Yes, potassium. Oh, my bad. Okay, yeah. So here's the video. Oh my god. What is this search engine optimization? Oh my god. Oh my god. I'll just tag this. I'll just tag this 1140. Okay. What is this search engine optimization, bro? Why does it say IIT? I searched for MIT. So here's this video which was posted 1 year ago. So that's what they're talking about. Since they were using light as their only source of information, the artificial tutors become very sensitive to the calibration of their sensor as well as to their context. They require very controlled environment to perform adequately. The first step in exploring unknown context was accomplished by a Stanford designed robot named Shaky. Shaky was the first robot able to reason about its own actions. Wait, it could reason about its own actions? That's crazy. It could make decisions based on the combination of the input from the several sensors in order to fulfill a given task. Okay, the platform itself considered in a differential drive actuated vehicle equipped with the camera rangefinders, encoders, and bump detectors. Its brain computer was SDS. Okay, so this is basically, I think that's a microcontroller. Oh, okay, okay. It's not a microcontroller. It's basically some sort of computing unit, machine designed to directly support time sharing, 24-bit CPU. Let's just read about this a little bit. To circuitry to provide protected memory and virtual memory. Okay, okay. That has nothing to do with our context, the size of a room, with which it communicated over radio link. Shaky vision system was able to detect and track baseboard with which allowed it to navigate in its large playground. Working with Shakely allowed the researchers to produce essential contributions such as A star path planning algorithm and the visible graph, both introduced in the chapter 8, as well as the hue transformation computer vision. Okay, what's that? What is so it's basically the foundational computer vision and image analysis technique. It primarily purpose to identify imperfect geometric shapes such as lines, circles, ellipses within an image, even though the shapes are obstructed by the noise or feature gaps. Okay, I'm not gonna read about this. When we'll particularly be studying about computer vision, we would probably study about this specific topic. Right after Shaky, Stanford contributed to the modern robotics, continued with another autonomous vehicle called the Stanford Card. Okay. Originally designed to mimic a lunar rover operated on the Earth, which implies a 2.6-second delay in the transmission of the instructions, it quickly became obvious that such a setup had only two options to choose between: move really slow or make the steering and the navigation autonomous. To detect obstacles, the card was equipped with the first stereo vision system, 3D imagery, to plan safety in its spot, and it would take a 15 minutes break and scan its surrounding each meter traveled. In 1979, using this strategy, it managed to cross autonomously 5 hours a 20-meter room filled with the chairs without any collision. Okay, these robots, as well as the other that we could have presented here, constitutes major milestones in the recent history of technology, as opposed to most of the automata from which they descend. They have the possibility to move by themselves and to adjust their internal sets and behavior according to the data coming from their sensors, an elementary form of extroversion. Extros Extroversion. Okay, what it means? I think I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Exteroception is the sense.
Exteroception. Okay. So basically, it's sensory processing of perceiving the external physical world and stimuli outside your body. Wait, stereo perception in robotics. To perceive information about its external environment. Okay, so if I'm, let's say, if I'm a robot, or let's say if I'm having this robotic car, and if there's a camera and it's taking input from that camera, that process is basically called exteroception. Exteroception. Yeah, they directly lead to the current state of the research and development in the self-driving vehicles and drones. All altogether, they pave the way to service robots outside the industrial realm that are able to cope with the challenging dynamics unknown environments. Okay, robots and arts research creation. As anyone may guess, research in robotics is an extremely active field. That's why I'm in here. No doubt. What is less known is that robotic art is also very dynamics. As for many technological developments, it didn't take long for artists to take hold of the new knowledge, methods, and the tool coming from rapidly expanding field. This should not come as a surprise, since, as we have seen, automata of all the kinds always maintained a close relationship with the arts, whereas scientists and the engineers were and are still concerned on how robots should be built. Artists as well as researchers from the human sciences ask the question of why they should be developed. Well, that's a really good question. Why they should be developed? Well, I think we have already answered to that question in the initial phases of this PDF, that something which is like which is involving destruction, like diffusing a bomb. If you rather send a robot instead of a human to defuse that bomb, it would be likely the probability that the human will be saved would be 1 or 100%, because there would be no loss of life even if the bomb detonates. You know, uh, many of their works invite us to evaluate the risk, shakes, and potential linked to the emergence of more and more sophisticated machines. As you will, the border between the research and the creation of the robotics can be very porous and sometimes completely blurred. Within the recent field of research creation that lies precisely at the intersection of art, science, and technology, are convinced robotic work that trigger the production of the new knowledge and new technology development in these three domains. Just like automata arts, robotics are not produce robots with the practical purpose. They are nonetheless managed to trigger the wealth of development and breakthroughs in mechanics as well as the mechatronics and programming. The impulse that drives them presents no major differences from the one that drove Jack Quadro's family to build his writer or his musician Bacchusson to build his duck by using some of the most advanced techniques of their time. Furthermore, the often quote let leitmotif starting that first robotic artists were playing with their contraptions instead of working to make them useful should be seen as a positive statement rather than deprecating one. Research in any field is first and foremost a ludic activity driven by the curiosity and desire. So yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm just going to highlight this specific point. It says that where did it go? So research in any field is the first and foremost activity driven by the curiosity. So in person, I'm a very curious person. Oh, my bad. I'm a very curious person, and that also one of the reason why I'm getting into robotics. Okay, wait, let me just get back. Okay, so artists cannot rely like university researchers on established research infrastructure, nor do they have access to the same level of human and material resources, but as a counterpart, they have a freedom of research and action that would not be possible in an institutional environment. Not being limited by any calendar constraints, research trends, and industrial need, artists are free to explore unexpected research tracks, not being incented by their peers to work at the edge of technology. They can investigate the potential of the low tech devices with a personal set of motivation, which adds up to the specific and unicity of their work. This has two consequences. The first, major results have been obtained by the people with the limited technology expertise and very limited means and resources at the times verging on the type of era, demonstrating, if necessary, that essential essential breakthroughs can be achieved from the elementary devices. Second, the association of artists with the university researchers or with industrial partners is likely to produce results that cannot be possibly for artists or the research alone. A quick look at the artwork from the domain that shows are essentially of hybrid nature from 1920 on artificial humanoids began to appear in the theater plays and performances. Okay, uh, they were most of the time remotely controlled and thus had no degree of autonomy. It is now commonly accepted that the art robot should supreme or be able to interact in some other ways with the audience or with its environment so that their behavior can change accordingly in the context in which they are presented. Okay, this very concept of interaction is actually related to the potential dialogue with artificial being. The occurrence of this dialogue depends on the elements that are used by the robot to communicate, which is why robot arts have also played an important role in the development of intuitive human robot interference. The first computer controlled robotic art piece was Sinister. It was equipped with interface that gave him a pseudo-human behavior in the sense that it was attracted towards soft movements and sounds, okay, but repelled by certain gestures and loud noises. The range of the level of technologies that were used to implement it, microphones, Doppler radars, okay, hydraulic arms, plus a 8K memory computer from Philippines whose price at the time exceeded that the three bedrooms apartment in London made it impossible to afford by an independent artist. It was actually commissioned by the Philippines company. The censor who took somewhat who looked somewhat like the three-legged, wait, let me just search for this. The sensor or robot. Bro, what is that? That doesn't look like a robot. Holy shit. That's crazy. Artificial intelligence. Avion sinister. Sensor. Okay. Three-legged 4-meter giraffe whose movements were okay. So this is exactly the robot that they're talking about. Uh, were derived from that of a lobster arm, can be seen as a pioneer the field of research creation. Okay. Its main objective was artistic, but its implementation required a collaboration with experts from the several fields and disciplines. Since it was sensitive to the general ambience of its context, it was able to trigger emotions in the people that interact with it. It looked like worried when the environment became too aggregated or too noisy, or when excited, which incited people as to act to make it feel better or more worried. Okay, so they're torturing that robot. um, I would have done that, you know. I'm just kidding. Okay, so this empathic attitude can be observed in the many latter work that were designed precisely to trigger it. The hist- hist- historical machines family by the Bill Vaughan were octopus-like mechanical robots hanging from the ceiling. When the visitors came too close to them, they were extremely agitated when showing signs of panic through rapid light effect and frantic movements of their metal tentacles. In front of such reaction, most of the felt sorry for them and were incited to walk back to calm them down. Okay. The Aero Stabilities project by the Reeves and the set on Gay consisted in a large robotic cubes levitating in wide internal spaces. They could remain still in the air thanks to the sensors, actuators, and ducted fans. A microcomputer permanently readjusted their position, producing slow oscillation despite their high-tech appearance far remote from. Oh, what's this? Flying Cubic Automata by Reeves. That of any living being, they managed to trigger internal emotions since their very soft movements were interpreted as a form of hesitation or breathing. They were seen by some visitors as large floating animals that were prisoners in some way of their technological involved. Oh, okay. Envelope. Okay, my bad. Technological envelope. The this what does this term mean?
connection, connection,
Wait, I can't hear anything.
connection,
Connection. So you pronounce it connection. This connection between the artificial movements of a robot uh, and the emotions felt by the visitors is of the utmost importance on 3 points. First, it demonstrates again, if needed, that the essence and the potential of any automata lie in its stimulus abilities. Second, it shows that even for living beings, powerful impressions and emotions can communicate even while considering only formal components of the movements, displacements, and gestures. Third, as a consequence of the second point, it opens the possibility to develop strictly formal or mechanical vocabularies for triggering and controlling human impression and emotions with all the risk and potentials as that such a project implies. Several other aspects of early automata can be observed in the robotic artwork. The puppet theater built by the heroine of Alexander finds contemporary counterparts in Cezanne how do you pronounce it? I don't know. I'm actually pronouncing it wrong. The owl and the robot, or the petite Nicholas, two interactive theoretical computer-controlled automatic sensors in the Vaughan and the Dermers, which involve more than 50 robots of the nine different pieces detecting the presence of the views and reacting to it. A movie showing large industrial robots and choreographed so as to evoke animals or plants. The Robotic Church by uh, Chico McMurphy involves 40 different robots that play their individual sound producing sequence. The level of interaction in this pieces is rather elementary, but they still demonstrate the importance for the robotic artist of attempting a dialogue between the robots and the views, or at least to trigger the reaction or ladder. The next step consisted in convincing work in which the human and robots would act together in an installation or performance scenes, trying to maximize the integration and such collaboration between the human and the robotic performers. Among the pioneers of such projects, Stilark stands out the first artist to have experimented robots as advanced prosthesis of his own body. In this seminal piece, The Third Hand, he tried to control a robotic arm fixated in his right forearm through his own muscular impulses in order to make it write the same thing as a right hand. He also designed pieces in which he reversed the material worlds of the humans and the robots in his pink body piece. Distinct views located located in three different sites Cit- cities could trigger his body movement through a muscular stimulation device. Muscular stimulation device. That sounds interesting. A less known but maybe more rapid piece, a human speaker experiment, presents a performer whose tongue, throat, cheeks, and lips are actuated by the mechanic and electric devices that allow to compute to make her pronounce different words and sounds. Such installations convert the body into passive objects whose only role is to follow instructions sent by the computer, like human interferences. Okay, I really have no idea what they're trying to say. I mean, I don't like get the perspective of them, like what you're trying to prove. Are you like trying to prove that the purpose of making robots were just to trigger human emotions? No, that's not the uh, core purpose. I guess what was the core purpose to what was the purpose to create assist human in automating tasks that are dangerous, dull, or repetitive. Repetitive. They're designed to improve efficiency, accuracy, and safety in environments that are harmful or physically demanding for the people. So it's just like some sort of labor work. Let me just my pen just fell down. Yeah. Okay. So things are not really interesting as I expected. It's getting pretty much boring, but I still have to read this all. Let me just get some water. Okay. So now they're talking about just like the self-destructive multi-machine performances in 80s by the survivor research laboratories. They convey strikingly powerful messages about the risk linked to the expansion of the robotic devices in daily life and the possibility for them to escape all human control. One cannot evoke robot arts without mentioning another category of pieces, namely those deliberately trying to intimate objects the appearance of life. Robotic chair by Matt Steen is an ordinary looking chair that deassemble, disassemble and reassembles autonomously. So Boussier Maget's grand pianos slowly move in an exhibition space, sometimes bumping into each other. Mike Phil, Mike Phillips' lot bot is a white abstract prison, several meter high, which Im- imperceptibly move in the atrium of the public building, getting closer and closer from group of the people who ended up noticing his ominous presence and quickly getting out of its way. Uh, Lived in an enclosure called Robotarium, in which they only concern an objective is to okay. They're also inspired by the water tortoise in the several ways. For instance, when low in battery, they seek the darker spot in the nest. Such works are often infused with a dose of humor, which does not prevent them to carry strong statements of other potential futures of the robots and unnecessary. I mean, this book trying to prove or trying to justify that what was the main motive behind building robots is like crazy. That's I think in my perspective, that's a lot of unnecessary talk that they have said. But anyways, one who is dealing with robotics has to read this. Other artists proposed work that directly addressed these notions by entering active discussion and controversy surrounding the research and development of the killer robots. So we have reached Terminators, you must have seen that movie. The ethical problems raised by such machines are nothing less than overwhelming in a 2021 piece called Spots Rampage. Brooklyn Collective has purchased one of the famous yellow dog shaped robots from the Boston Dynamics. Okay, so here we go. Which is used to display playing and jumping on the videos that became viral. They equipped it with a paint gun and offered to anyone the possibility to pilot it online. And so, to make more concrete the possibility of the armed police robots wandering in the streets of the large cities. Mischief. One common point of work mentioned in the present section is that they can hardly be relegated to single domain. All of them are nurtured by the data information coming from the three fields of art, science, and technology. They are inherently transdisciplinary. Some authors even qualify them as post-disciplinary, since a robotic artist can navigate between thread, performance, music, video installation, sculpture, bio arts, visual arts, and many other, producing equally variable work in each of these fields. They can be characterized by the fact that they are uh, constantly cross boundaries between all those fields and domains, and by the way they manage to thrive on these boundaries, just like a former automata maker, researchers, creator in robotics arts are dedicated to creation of the artwork which constitute their final objective, just like them. Through the process of conceiving and implementing them, they develop advanced new skills, expertise, and knowledge then that can then transfer to the several other fields. And just like them, mechanisms they imagine can be seen as a models for some hidden or ill-explained aspects of reality. What do you mean by that? And help understand these aspects. And last but not least, the interactive nature of the most robotic artwork directly connects with the old age impulse to create work that stimulate feature of living beings. That was boring AF. That was really boring. I literally started getting brain fog. I mean, what's the point of? Let's just jump to studying what ROS, robotic operating system, is. Why not? We should just jump. No, we shouldn't. It's quite important to know the motivation. Well, the fact that motivation in itself is boring. Okay, anyways, how much do we have to read more? Let me see. Oh, so we are ending over here. Social robots. Should I skip this? I think I should skip this up because I don't think so. There isn't anything important. No, there isn't anything important. Tokyo University, such robots would radically would fix themselves after a failure, like a surgeon that performs surgery on himself. The second one includes the robots that are made of the soft materials that self reconstruct. Oh yeah, I have heard of this. I've heard of this. I've seen that in that video of potassium, self-constructible robots having accidentally been damaged or ripped by a collision, like a biological skin. Replication and evolution on their side is not an independent process. In both cases, the robot must carry the information that represents itself in order to transmit to a device that could be built. Okay, I'm not reading this, just skipping this up. And then they are asking some questions, revision questions. How are arts contribute to development of robotics? Are there more correct answers to issues? By allowing studies to be carried out free laboratory environment, by prioritizing, by making research popular, by questioning the present and future um, by questioning the present and the future emotional implication of technology. I guess it's A, which is the following historical figures is recognized for having produced the first programmable automata, who is known to have the written first machine algorithm. That's Ada Lovelace. Can you identify the main impulses that drove the first automata to build demonstrate their knowledge, to replicate living organisms to help understand phenomena such as life, such no, to impress. So it was to stimulate or replicate the living organisms. Yeah, for the reading. Okay. I don't. Is that research paper? I don't know. Okay. So finally, what page number that is? 61. So finally, we are at chapter 2. Okay. So teaching and learning robotics. Should I take a break? Let me see. So it's been 43 minutes since I started recording. I think I should just get some water and we'll continue with this. Please don't tell me that they're still going to teach the ideology of robotics or the history of robotics in this. Okay, here we can see the learning objectives. By the end of this chapter, you'll be able to understand the current challenges in the robotics course designed in the higher education. Okay, analysis. Okay, I'll tell you what, this is actually a really good thing because if you're able to understand that what challenges we are uh, encountering in the field of robotics, we can actually look at the problems, and by looking at the problems, we could actually create solutions, which could lead to research or publishing a research paper. So analyze current teaching practice and innovations in the robotics teaching, reflect on link between the learning theories and better pedagogy. I don't know what that is. Pedagogus. How do you pronounce this? Holy shit.
Pedagogies.
Pedagogies. Pedagogies for designing robotics education. Select and assemble situated pedagogies and technique for self directed learning and development in the field of robotics. Okay, introduction. The previous chapter outlined the technological and the developments, technological developments of the growth in the robotics field, the advancement, the proliferation of robotics application that had enormous impact on our daily lives and have changed and skill uh, competencies of emerging workforce. Adam Ala argued for robotics integration into all levels of education to prepare the future workforce of the technological advanced society. Considering the growth of robotics applications and the increase in the robotics courses in academia, it is vital that the curricula of the higher education to be carefully designed to address the graduate workspace demands. In that domain, there is absence of systematic discussion and examination of the robotics education. Okay, so they're just talking about the lack of robotics education and the information that they're providing in the current academia, both of the syllabus and the pedagogies,
Pedagogies.
pedagogies for addressing graduate student needs. Territory level, the systematic discussion of teaching and the learning practices is improvated, dedicated not only from the educated uh, renewal perspective, but also from the design and product development perspective in a newly developed industries that will have lasting and far-reaching societal implications. This chapter aims to review the current evidence-based research studies of robotics in the higher education due to expansion of robotics application in the numerous fields such as mechanical engineering, mechatronics, information technology, artificial intelligence, to name a few. We reviewed research investigating teaching and the uh, assess- assessment practices in the robotics courses, primarily in the last 10 years. This time frame will capture the current development and innovation in the field and will provide a comprehensive understanding of the effective teaching practices. These teaching practices will be explained in the context of a established educational theories and philosophies in adult learning with the goal of assisting teachers and academic in the design and selection of the pedagogies. Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. I'm learning principles to suit robotic education. In writing this chapter, we have we have two primary audiences in the mind. First, we hope that this discussion is applicable to teachers, academics, and course designers of the higher education robotics course, as well as introduce a bank of resources which they can use to design effective, pedagogically appropriate and industrial relevant curricula guided by self-centered education philosophies. So they're basically saying that by reading this, you could eventually create some curricula or some curriculum which is related to robotics. And with understanding of link between the educational theories and practices, it will contribute to principal approach to the design, reflection, improvement, and the current educational practices, pedagogies, and the assessment in the robotics education. Second, so we are moving to second type of people. The Wait, what does this mean? The method of practice of teaching, pedagogies,
Pedagogies.
pedagogies. God, why am I pronouncing that incorrect? pedagogical discussion will be immensely valuable to students who are enrolled in the robotics course or who might want to advance their knowledge and skills in the field. Yes, I'm probably one of them. It will provide them with a comprehensive understanding of the theories and the pedagogies under pinning course design with a clear insight into interdisciplinary nature of the field. Exactly. So robotics is basically interdisciplinary field. It consists of the computer programming, the mechanical engineering, and the electrical engineering. And that's one of the reasons why I love this field. Knowledge and the awareness of the effective practices will empower and propel students to pursue their own learning and endow them with an array of strategies to learn autonomously and enhance their self-directed learning. Con- constructivists and uh, constructionists. Wait, wait. What do you mean by this? Educational theories discussed in the section 6 in more detail regard teachers as facilitators and guidelines of students learning. Okay, between learners. Okay, okay. I'm not going to read that. I'm just reading that in my mind to save some time. Defining the body of the knowledge of the robotics field as important. So I'm just going to read those things in my mind, which I think which are not important as much as other things. Designing an appropriate. Okay, this process is just that each of the stages not acting independently, but it's mutually dependent on each other in order to address the research gap in education robotics literature and to guide development of the ideologies and practices in the robot. Okay, despite the wealth of research in robotics field, we have been few attempts to at describing the body of the knowledge experted for those working in the field to date. To date, we trace the most recent discussion of the body of knowledge and the skill for the robotics to review in this, which can summarize here to describe. Okay, they're just talking bullshit. This isn't robotics, bro. I mean, please. Robotics is a field that is taught in the various courses and disciplines such as engineering, computer science, information technology. It is commonly edged among the research data field, highly diverse and draws on a variety of disciplines. According to McKee, this knowledge goes beyond traditional field of research in mathematical modeling and learning, but includes the key theoretical and practical dimension that reflect the diversity in the field. It can cover areas such as mathematics, computing. Exactly. So that's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about. So this knowledge goes beyond the traditional mathematics, computing, control engineering, electronic computer systems, programming, algorithms, robotic system, and practice artificial and computational intelligence, human computer interaction, artificial intelligence, algorithmic and mathematical modeling, machine learning. Damn, that's a lot of stuff. I mean, that is literally a lot of stuff. Like, on a serious note, that's lot of stuff. Let me just save that up. Yep, I replace it. Let me close this. The multidisciplinary nature of the robotics poses several challenges for the curriculum developers in the field and calls for the systematic and theory-driven approach to the design of the ter- curricula. In the second study, highlight the importance of defining the body of the knowledge necessary for the robotics education, presenting advanced prospective engineering to handle complex natures of the robotic applications. So here's the thing. Robotics in itself is basically a very, very interdisciplinary field. That's one of the reasons why not everyone can do this. The people who are basically curious and have eager or hungry to learn to learn things about. Usually, those are the peoples who basically choose robotics as their career, and that's what my perspective says. Complex nature of the robotics application, they argue that the robotic education must not simply attempt to transfer knowledge, but to attempt to educate innovators who will have the imagination to shape our world. Yeah, I want to change the world. Uh, I actually want to work with Elon Musk, and I really want to send humanoid astronauts into space. Not into space, but probably on Mars. That's what I've thought. Because if you have to, let's say, if you have to go to Mars, you know the humans might need to develop something called, I'm just distracting myself, I know, something called chamber pods, where basically they hibernate. So by the time they reach Mars, they will be hibernating. But robots don't need any kind of hibernation. They can be turned on and off just like a switch. So that's a really good thing. That's a really, really good thing. Discussing their difficulties in their own course assigned, they identify certain gaps in the robotic education. So robotics engineering does not seem to have a firm intellectual biases, which is necessary for defining the knowledge and the skills required for undergraduate courses in the robotics. Robotics engineering is not uh, erudite program of the study, and the authors recommended that research identify the body of the knowledge expected. Robotics engineering should bridge the gap between the scientific theoretical knowledge and hands-on industrial knowledge. There is insufficient research on the appropriate curricula and the syllabi for robotics engineering education. Okay, that's a pretty obvious thing. Beside the interdisciplinary nature and the skills needed in the design of the robotics courses, other compounding factors include the role of the robotics courses in the different disciplines, schools, and faculties, and the selection of content to meet the level of prerequisite knowledge expected of students when enrolling in a robotic course. These concerns are further compounded by the challenges of balancing theory and practical, the appropriateness of the selection of the teaching methods and robotics courses, and the design of assessment that evaluates students' achievements of the skill of practical and theoretical understanding. Jan 2013, I don't know what they're referring to. The comprehensive inspection of the educational literature on robotics reveals that the current teaching of robotics has not challenged dramatically since the studies in the 2007 and 9. Despite the wide application developments in the research space, this is a point of departure for present chapters, which will be reviews the suite of studies that are pioneer innovation
pedagogies,
pedagogies, innovative pedagogies, and assessment in robotics, which will guide our subsequent theoretical discussion and recommendation for pedagogical approach in the robotic field. Review of research, review of the research on pedagogies and practices in the robotics education. Okay, due to STEM integration in the in the school years, robotics engineering has widespread appeal among university students. And this appeal has captured the attention of educators. Okay, educational practitioners and the researchers in the field highlight that the need to shift away from the traditional mode of delivering robotics education to encapsulate the diverse applications of the automata, integrate interdisciplinary research, and to solve some of the aforementioned tensions given the technological advancements and innovations have been introduced in the delivery of the courses, which include virtual learning environments, virtual robotic laboratories, and mobile robotics education to support the distance and online courses in the robotics. This section reviews the current research on the educational robotics and reports on innovative pedagogies and content selection employed in the design and the teaching of the robotics course, especially in the last 10 years. The research studies originate in the course, which received favorable student evaluation and led improved learning outcomes. The representation will pave the way of revolutionizing higher education robotics courses and assess students and the teachers in identifying pedagogical tools for autonomous learning and development and teacher curriculum development. Okay, should we just stop? Should we just stop over here? I think we already did a lot of stuff. I think I should not. How many pages is this of? So basically, here over here, there are interactive sessions using reinforcement learning to working on decision making problems. Okay, situator learning methodology, flipped classroom, gamification, online interactive tools. Okay, I need to read this. I can't really skip this stuff. Reflective learning, competition based assessment. Oh, so we have completed 1 hour. I think I'm probably gonna stop over here and adaptation of the content from different disciplinaries. So 2.4.1, we are going to start from here tomorrow. What's the date today? It's 3. From tomorrow, we are going to start. Oh, please open. Tomorrow on Thursday, we are going to start with this particular topic, and I think that is it for today. See you in the next lecture. Goodbye.